Somewhere in your house tonight, sitting in a drawer nobody has opened since a funeral, there is a small box that could be worth more than the car parked outside. There are 17 things hiding in jewelry boxes right now, in ordinary houses, owned by people who have no idea, and you might be sitting closer to one of them than you think. I don't mean the ring you insured. I mean the tangle underneath it, the tarnished chain nobody wears, the single earring with no partner, the brooch shaped like a bow that belonged to somebody's mother, the medal on a faded ribbon, the string of beads you were told was just costume. I have arranged tonight so the value climbs with every item, and I have saved the single most extraordinary story I know for the very end. A piece bought at a garage sale for the price of a sandwich that turned out to be worth more than most people's houses. Stay to the end for that one. By the time this video is finished, you will be on your knees in front of a drawer with a magnifying glass in your hand, and you will never again let anyone weigh your jewelry before they have actually looked at it. Let me be straight with you before we start, because I have no interest in filling your head with fantasies. Most jewelry is worth what you think it's worth, which is not very much. And most gold chains really are priced fairly by weight. I won't pretend otherwise. And if anyone tells you every box is a gold mine, they are lying to you for clicks. But here is the thing. 35 years of appraising estates taught me, and it made me more frustrated in this category than in any other single area of the trade. The jewelry box is where value goes to hide in plain sight, because the people selling it are grieving, or rushing, or simply tired. And the people buying it know precisely what they are looking at, while pricing it as though they don't. A maker's mark, a hallmark, a hand-cut stone, an engraved date, all of that evaporates the second something goes on a scale. An object becomes a number. And the man behind the counter is very good at making sure it stays that way. My name is Eleanor Cross. I spent 35 years as a gemologist and valuer, working estate sales, probate inventories, and auction house consignments across 3 countries. And I have watched more families undersell their own history than I care to count. I'm not selling you anything tonight. I have nothing in this for me, except the hope that you don't make the mistakes I've watched other people make for 3.5 decades. So before you do anything else, don't sell it, don't scrap it, and don't divide the box up between the cousins on looks alone. Not yet. Hear all 17 first. One more thing before we begin. Most people watching right now are not subscribed to this channel. And if you like learning what the ordinary things in your house are actually worth, that costs you nothing to fix. And it means you won't miss what's coming after this one. All right, let's open the box. Number 17. Sweetheart and trench art jewelry. The little enamel regimental brooches, the sixpence bent into a pendant, the ring made from a coin or a bit of shell casing that a soldier sent home. Families see it as sentimental clutter from a war they never lived through. Collectors see documented military history you can hold in your palm. Well-made sweetheart brooches from named regiments sell for £40 to £150, and true trench art, rings and pendants hand-carved by soldiers themselves from shrapnel or coin silver, sells for £100 to £600, depending on craftsmanship and provenance. Your test tonight. Look for regimental crests, unit numbers, and dates scratched into the metal. And if there's a letter or photograph that came with it, keep them together, because paired with its story, a £5 trinket becomes a museum-grade piece. Number 16. Bohemian garnet jewelry. The dark red cluster, brooches and necklaces. Dozens of small stones packed tight around a larger centre, usually mounted in a dull rose gold toned metal that looks almost cheap until you look closer. These came out of Central Europe by the thousands in the Victorian era, and most families assume cluster of small red stones means glass. Genuine Bohemian pyrope garnet jewelry, with its distinctive foiled backing and rose-cut stones, sells for £150 to £800 for a good brooch or necklace, with large matched paras reaching into the thousands. Your test tonight: count the stones and check the setting from behind, because real Bohemian garnet work is closed back and foiled, and that closed back is the signature the trade looks for first. Number 15. Scottish Luckenbooth and Celtic Silver. Heart-shaped brooches, sometimes crowned, sometimes twinned into a double heart, made as betrothal gifts, and passed down as christening pieces for 2 centuries. Families call them the odd heart brooch, and rarely think twice. Antique silver Luckenbooths sell for £80 to £400, and early examples with hallmarks or in gold climb well past £1,000. Your test tonight: turn it over and look for Scottish assay marks, a thistle, a castle, or Edinburgh's hallmark, because a marked Luckenbooth is a documented antique, not a souvenir shop trinket, however similar the two might look side by side. Number 14. Mourning jewelry in vulcanite and gutta percha. The black jewelry again, and I understand why it gets skipped past. But hear me out, because this is one of the most misunderstood corners of the whole box. These early black plastics, molded into brooches, bracelets, and lockets during the deep mourning culture of the 1800s, are frequently mistaken for cheap bakelite or dismissed as junk. Fine carved vulcanite mourning pieces sell for £60 to £300, and gutta percha pieces with intact carving, which is now genuinely rare due to how the material degrades, can reach higher still. Your test tonight: it should feel warm rather than icy cold to the touch, and unlike glass jet, it will show fine tool marks under a magnifying glass. The category survives because an entire generation threw pieces like this in the bin, assuming black meant worthless. Number 13. Arts and Crafts Moonstone and Opal Jewelry. Cloudy, glowing stones set in hand-hammered silver, often with stylized leaves or berries, made by small design houses around the turn of the last century. Families call it the Milky Stone Ring and price it like a souvenir. Signed Arts and Crafts pieces from makers like Liberty & Co. or Georgian-era jewelers reviving handwork, sell for £150 to £900, with fine opal examples reaching well beyond that when the play of colour is strong. Your test tonight: tilt the stone under a light. Real moonstone has a blue sheen that seems to float beneath the surface, and real opal throws flashes of colour that no glass imitation can properly fake. This entire movement was a rejection of mass production, which is exactly why the pieces are hand-finished and worth finding. Number 12. Marcasite jewelry. The small faceted grey stones set in silver, twinkling like tiny mirrors, usually in Art Deco geometric patterns. Families assume it's paste or rhinestone and put it in the costume worth nothing pile without a second look. Good quality marcasite jewelry, especially signed Art Deco pieces in sterling silver, sells for £40 to £250, with elaborate panel bracelets and dress clips reaching higher. Your test tonight: check that the stones are hand-set individually rather than glued in a single sheet, because that hand-setting is what separates real marcasite from the mass-produced imitation that flooded the market decades later. Number 11. Celluloid and early plastic jewelry. The sister category to bakelite, thinner, lighter, sometimes carved to imitate ivory or tortoiseshell from the very first decades of the 1900s. Because it's older and more fragile than bakelite, and because most families have never heard the word celluloid in their lives, it gets treated as worthless. Well-preserved carved celluloid pieces sell for £30 to £150, with rare figural brooches and hair combs reaching several hundred. Your test tonight: look closely at any carved ivory or tortoiseshell comb or brooch in the box. because celluloid was made specifically to imitate those expensive materials, and the imitation itself is now the antique. Number 10. Signed costume jewelry. And here is the number where I want you to stop scrolling for a moment, because this single category quietly costs families more money than almost any other in this list. We separate jewelry into real and costume, as though costume automatically means worthless, and the collector's market disagrees entirely. Pieces signed by the great mid-century houses, names like Trifari, Coro, Miriam Haskell, Eisenberg, and early signed Chanel or Dior, sell for £70 to £700, and the rarest figural and enamel pieces from these makers have sold for well over £3,000. Your test tonight is the single habit that runs through this entire video. Take a magnifying glass to the back of every clasp, every pin stem, every earring post, hunting for a tiny stamped signature. That signature is the entire difference between a car boot sale bag and a specialist auction lot, and I have personally watched a bag of junk costume jewelry sell for £5 with a signed Miriam Haskell necklace sitting inside it, unnoticed, by everyone at the table. Number 9. Cameos. Every family has one, the carved profile of a woman's face, and most of them genuinely are worth a modest £25 to £70, so let's be honest about that from the start. But cameos are a ladder, and the top rungs go a long way up. Shell cameos, carved with unusual subjects, mythological scenes, animals, or male portraits, instead of the standard idealized lady, sell for £100 to £400. Hardstone cameos, carved in banded agate or onyx rather than shell, cold and glassy under your fingertip, sell for £250 to £2,500. Your test tonight. Check the subject first and the material second. Look for genuine depth of carving and fine detail in the hair and features, and check any surrounding frame for gold hallmarks, because a gold-mounted cameo is announcing its own quality before you've even studied the carving. Number 8. Chatelaines and vinaigrettes. The strange little Victorian accessories nobody quite knows the purpose of anymore. A chain with tiny attached tools, or a small hinged box meant to hold scented sponge. Families often don't even recognize these as jewelry, and they get pushed to the bottom of the box, forgotten. Silver chatelaines with intact attachments sell for £150 to £600, and finely engraved gold or silver vinaigrettes, especially those with a pierced grill inside, sell for £200 to £900. Your test tonight. If you find a small hinged box or a chain with dangling miniature tools, do not assume it's broken or incomplete, because these odd little objects are exactly the kind of thing a specialist collector has been quietly searching for. Number 7. Religious medals and reliquary jewelry. The most overlooked drawer in the whole house, because pricing faith feels wrong to most families, and I respect that instinct completely. Let me say clearly that a piece's meaning to your family should always come first. But hidden among ordinary medals are real objects of value: antique gold and enamel religious medals, French and Italian reliquary lockets, and finely worked crosses with hallmarks, sell for £90 to £600, and occasionally well beyond. Your test tonight. Check any gold-coloured medal or cross for hallmarks under magnification, and research any engraved name, date, or place, because a religious piece with a documented history behind it is worth more to a collector, not less. I have valued reliquary pieces where the family chose never to sell at any price, and every time I told them they were right to keep it. Number 6. Cufflinks and shirt studs. The forgotten menswear at the bottom of the box, in a small case that hasn't been opened since a wedding decades ago. Gold cufflinks carry weight value, which a scrap counter will happily pay you a fraction of the true worth for, but the object value runs considerably higher. Victorian and Art Deco enamel cufflinks sell for £80 to £400, and signed pairs from major houses climb into the thousands. Your test tonight. Take the magnifying glass to every single link, hunting for hallmarks and makers' names, and keep pairs together with their original cases, because a complete set with its box is worth meaningfully more than the same links loose and separated. Before we climb into the top 5, let me give you the one idea this entire video has been building toward. In jewelry, the mark is the object. A piece of metal is anonymous until a signature, a hallmark, or an inscription gives it an identity. And the moment it has one, it stops being scrap and becomes a document. The businesses that buy jewelry by weight are relying entirely on the fact that most people never look for that identity before they sell. Your only real protection tonight is that you now know to look. Magnifying glass first, scales never. And nothing leaves your house priced only by weight. If this is useful to you, tap the like button now, because there's a great deal more of this still to come. Number 5. Natural pearls. The strand at the bottom of the box that everyone in the family assumes is fake, or at best cultured and worth a modest sum. Most of the time, honestly, that assumption is correct. But natural pearls, formed entirely without human intervention, mostly before the 1920s, are among the single most valuable things an ordinary jewelry box can hold, with fine natural strands selling at auction for £8,000 to well over £100,000. And old family estates are precisely where they still turn up, because for a century nobody thought to check. Your test tonight. Rub a pearl gently against the edge of your front tooth. Real pearls, whether natural or cultured, feel slightly gritty. Glass and plastic imitations feel smooth. Then examine the clasp, because a fine antique clasp in gold with old stones is often the tell that the strand attached to it was once genuinely precious. Any gritty strand with a serious clasp deserves a proper certificate before anyone in the family calls it costume. Number 4. Old mine cut and old European cut diamond rings. This is where I need you listening most carefully, because this is where the scrap trade does its worst damage. Rings set with old mine cut or old European cut diamonds. Hand-cut stones with small tables and deep, warm facets that catch candlelight rather than fluorescent light are routinely bought purely for their gold weight, with the stones themselves dismissed as melee and thrown in for nothing. Those hand-cut stones are specifically sought after today, precisely because nobody cuts them that way anymore. And a Victorian or Edwardian ring holding even a single 1-carat old cut stone is often worth many multiples of what the gold alone would fetch. Your test tonight. Any ring holding any stone at all gets photographed from every angle, its hallmarks read under magnification, and valued by an independent appraiser or auction house before it ever goes near a buying counter. The sign in the shop window says, "We buy gold." It has never once said we will pay you a fraction of your grandmother's ring's real worth. But in my experience, that is very often exactly what happens. Number 3. Pocket watches. The heavy watch in the drawer beneath the jewelry box, chain still attached, glass cracked, silent for decades. Families assume a broken watch is a worthless watch. And with this category, that assumption is almost always wrong. Plain silver pocket watches sell modestly, £30 to £120, and gold examples carry meaningfully more. But the real money sits in complications and makers. Repeating watches that chime the hour, early chronographs, and fine English or Swiss, houses of standing, sell for £400 to £8,000. With the great names, well beyond that. American railroad-grade watches from top-tier factories have their own devoted following too. Your test tonight. Open the case back. There's almost always a hidden hinge, and photograph everything engraved on the movement inside, because a pocket watch documents its own identity for anyone willing to search the serial number. And whatever you do, don't oil it and don't attempt to repair yourself, because an amateur hour with the movement can undo 2 centuries of preserved value in a moment. Number 2. Wristwatches. The broken one in the drawer, the one that needs a battery, the one that belonged to somebody's father and has sat silent for 20 years. I will say this as plainly as I can. Never, under any circumstance, sell a wristwatch for its metal weight alone. Vintage watches from the major houses, names like Rolex, Omega, Longines, and Jaeger-LeCoultre, sell for £400,000 to £40,000 and beyond, depending heavily on model and condition. And the sporting models bought by ordinary working men decades ago, as everyday tools have often climbed the highest of all, because so few survived unworn. Your test tonight. Every watch in the house, working or not, gets its face photographed clearly, and any papers or original boxes get hunted down and kept together, because in this category, paperwork alone can double the final price. A broken vintage watch is very often a £50 repair sitting inside a £5,000 object. Number 1. The garage sale ring. And here it is, the story I promised you, and it is entirely true and well documented. In the United States, a woman bought a large clear stone set in a plain ring at a garage sale.